Most people fear messing with cartels, but these cartels fear messing with these individuals.
You gonna shoot me in front of everybody? Huh?
From a crime-fighting mother who sought revenge for her daughter to civilians turned mercenaries, and one man who refused to let the cartel take over his ranch, these stories will leave you inspired as well as shocked. In today's video, we will be looking at the gangsters who made the mistake of messing with the wrong people and paid the price for it. Miriam Rodriguez. In the same state of Tamaulipas, 3 years later, on January 24, 2014, a daughter calls her mother to tell her that her younger sister has been kidnapped by the same Los Zetas drug cartel. This is the story of Miriam Rodriguez, who took justice into her own hands after her 20-year-old daughter was kidnapped and later murdered by the gangsters. After the abduction of Karen, the cartel initially asked for 1 million pesos, which is around $77,000 in ransom. Miriam paid immediately to get her daughter back safely, but that never happened, even after paying more money multiple times. It was clear to Miriam that she was now one of the hopeless cases of missing child parents, and her youngest daughter was never going to return home. But what all 11 of the abductors didn't see coming was that this mother was not going to let them walk away from their crime. Miriam, who was often teased by her children that she wanted to be a cop, but wasn't corrupt enough to be one, had a history of chasing criminals. In 1989, when a few thieves decided to steal from her husband's safe, she tracked them down and recovered everything. And after accepting that she had lost Karen forever, she vowed to avenge her daughter. With more than 70,000 missing cases, the police weren't of any help, so Miriam spent the next 2 years tracking down the people involved in the crime herself. Dressed as a pollster, a health worker, and even an election official, she got to work. She even used various hair colors and styles to disguise herself. Miriam ingeniously devised ways to extract names and addresses. She went further, skillfully engaging with the families of the suspects, effortlessly gathering details during casual conversations. Every snippet of information, no matter how small, found its place in her trusty black computer bag. Amidst her relentless pursuit, Miriam unearthed her daughter's remains a year after her abduction, buried in a desolate, abandoned ranch. Despite some of the suspects leading new lives as taxi drivers, salesmen, and even babysitters, they couldn't manage to evade Rodriguez's radar. She continued her quest without a police escort, seeking their assistance only when the time was right to arrest the suspects. After apprehending nearly all of the suspects, only one remained: the florist. Miriam had pursued him relentlessly for over a year, befriending his relatives, interrogating former accomplices, and even stalking his online activity. Then, a call from a widow revealed the florist's whereabouts. Miriam wasted no time. Wearing a trench coat over her pajamas and tucking her gun into her handbag, she started to head towards the border. On the Texas bridge among the mourning crowd, she scanned the faces while holding the florist's picture. When she finally saw him, overwhelmed by the emotions from her desire for vengeance, she didn't realize she had gotten too close, and the florist recognized her. He began to run, and despite being 56 at the time, Miriam chased him along the narrow pedestrian pass, and just before he could escape, Miriam managed to grab hold of his shirt, wrestling him to a stop. With her pistol pressed firmly against his back, she warned him against any foolish moves by saying that she is ready and won't hesitate to pull the trigger. She held him at gunpoint, pinning him to the ground for almost an hour until the police arrived and finally arrested the suspect. After tirelessly working day and night for more than 2 years, Miriam's struggle for vengeance finally came to an end. However, the trauma of losing her daughter lingered, refusing to fade away. Her frequent encounters with other parents who shared similar trauma prompted her to take action. she founded an NGO called the San Fernando Collective for the Disappeared. This organization brought together around 600 families who joined forces to search for their missing relatives, providing support and solidarity to one another in their shared struggle. Haiti Gangs. Haiti, a country in the Caribbean, has been dealing with gang trouble for ages. The gangsters there hold so much power and influence that they seem to have more say than the government itself. And you know what? Haiti never really got its act together when it comes to having a proper army or a decent police force. The United Nations and America have intervened a few times, but there is still no solid tradition of honest political institutions. To showcase their power, Haitian leaders have been using armed civilians for a while. The gangs in Haiti have become so powerful that they even managed a 2-month-long crisis of fuel after seizing control of the country's main fuel terminal in September 2022. Their blockade, in response to the government's proposed plan to cut fuel subsidies, led to the closure of hospitals, schools, and many businesses. This was not only a showcase of power, but also the direct challenge to state that they can't do anything about them. But things got worse in the capital of Haiti, Port-au-Prince, in 2020 when the war between two major gangs, G9 and GPEP, started. By 2023, it resulted in the displacement of more than 100,000 people, with 90% of the city under the total control of the gangs. Jean-Baptiste, a gardener whose full identity has been hidden for security reasons, told reporters that he has been watching the capital of Haiti slide into chaos with brutal murders, kidnappings, and sexual violence at the hands of gangs. Their pleas for help are ignored by authorities, and it's about time people started standing up for themselves. Along with people in his neighborhood, when Jean witnessed the loss of one of his relatives to gang violence, they took matters into their own hands. Arming themselves with machetes, they started patrolling the neighborhood, and in 2 weeks, more than 25 gangsters were put to rest in Jean's neighborhood, Tujo. Well, Jean and the folks in his neighborhood weren't the only ones taking action against these gangsters. Almost every other neighborhood was defending their turf as part of a movement called BWA Kale, which is a metaphor for swift justice. The movement kicked off with crowds demanding justice, leading to the stoning and burning down of around a dozen gang members who were detained by police while on their way to meet an allied gang in a nearby district on 24 April 2022. After this incident, there were calls for Operation File Manche, which means Operation Sharpen Machete, by civilians on social media. Even a few churches got involved by spreading this message. Since then, the people of Haiti have started fighting back. Whenever the gangs ventured into their neighborhoods, people would effectively alert everyone by banging pots and using anything they could find, like rocks and machetes, to confront the gang members. With the increasing numbers, the BWA Kale movement emboldened people to raid gang houses and police stations, dragging out the gangsters and executing them in the streets. The way they have been retaliating isn't something approved by human rights activists around the world, but the people of Haiti couldn't care less. Within the first 3 weeks, the impact of BWA Kale was apparent, with more than 100 gang members disposed of. In return, there was only one civilian gone missing. Over the months, people started to witness gang wars escalate into conflicts between gangs and the population, resulting in the deaths of over 300 gang members and around 45 civilians. However, just like we saw with La Familia, which began as a vigilante group before transitioning into a notorious gang, BWA Kale has people worried too. Without a strong government and police force, BWA Kale never became a movement that could last for years. It's an unorganized and unstructured organization driven by emotionally fueled reactions of civilians lynching mobs. People are divided over their stance on BWA Kale. Some support it, while others point fingers, claiming that BWA Cale itself is a gang. One thing for sure is that BWA Cale has instigated fear among gangsters across Haiti. Bryant and Lauren Swenson. Bryant Swenson from Utah, a CrossFit-certified trainer who had opened CrossFit Cedar City after remodeling his garage in 2008, decided to move to Nairobi, Kenya in 2016 to open the first world-class gym there. On one fine Friday morning, Bryant, along with his wife Lauren and Kenyan trainers, were on their way to record some content to promote their gym. Upon encountering a jam-packed main road, they thought it would be better to take a dirt road instead. While on the road, they crossed paths with two officers on foot, equipped with machine guns. They asked for a lift, but as there were already 4 people in the car, they couldn't accommodate them. Everything seemed fine and chill, almost a therapeutic experience of off-roading in the mountains of Mai Mahiu. That is, until 3 suspicious men emerged behind the white van they were approaching, and things took a wild turn. This gang of bandits, covering their faces with masks, were armed with machetes. Their intentions were clear: steal the car. But turns out they had messed with the wrong guy here. With gangsters charging while brandishing the machetes, without panicking, Bryant made the smart move of backing up so they could roll up the windows. Now realizing his 80 series cruiser is the bigger weapon, he throttles and moves forward while one of the gangsters takes a swipe at his car. But Bryant doesn't stop and keeps accelerating forward. The gangsters are already robbing the white van, which also flashes its headlights, and one of the passengers waves his hand to warn them, but they miss it in real time. Don Alejo. Alejo Garza Tamez, also known as Don Alejo, was born in 1933 near Allende, Nuevo Leon. His early years were spent in the rugged hills, helping his father sell lumber. Alongside his brothers, he later found work as a timber worker in Montemorelos. Don Alejo made his dream of owning his own property come true by buying a 200-acre ranch in Tamaulipas through years of hard work and savings. The ranch was initially considered a wasteland, but Don Alejo's determination and hard work transformed the property into a thriving farm, which he named Ranch San Jose in memory of his father, Jose Garza. Alongside his skills as a farmer, Don Alejo had exceptional hunting abilities. His accuracy with a rifle was well known among hunters and those who knew him. Don Alejo spent his time living a peaceful life with his wife and 2 daughters for several decades. However, during this time, the influence of cartels in Mexico was increasing exponentially. Brutal wars erupting in Tamaulipas led to a rise in dangerous activities like robberies and kidnappings. These cartels began extorting money from local farmers as a monthly fee in exchange for protection. Despite all of this happening in the same city as Don Alejo's ranch, he remained undeterred from his path of honest living. He managed to stay away from the cartel business until the age of 77. On November 12, 2010, a truckload of gangsters from Los Zetas, notorious for training La Familia cartel, arrived at his front door. They bluntly informed Don Alejo that he had 24 hours to vacate his property and never return. However, Don Alejo firmly refused to comply. The gangsters, assuming the old man needed time to reconsider, issued the ultimatum again, this time with less generosity, warning him that they would return that same night and staying would be a death wish. Don Alejo was unfazed and declared that he would be waiting for them. However, Don Alejo was committed to his refusal to give up the property he had earned through hard work and invested decades in making it the perfect ranch for himself. He gathered all his employees and instructed them to take the weekend off, advising them to take the livestock and any valuables they could find on the land with them. Don Alejo knew he had lived long enough not to cowardly walk off his farm to save his life. What the cartels thought was giving Don Alejo time as a feeble old man to reconsider and not mess with them proved to be a deadly mistake. Don Alejo used the time to retrieve weapons and ammunition from his secret cellar, turning his home into a fortress by stocking every window and door with hunting rifles and ammunition. At 4 in the morning, the cartels showed up at his ranch, honking their horns and flashing their headlights. Don Alejo reminded them of what he had said before they left the previous day, that he would be waiting. True to his word, as soon as the trucks approached the house, Alejo started shooting in a very controlled manner. With years of experience in shooting down animals, Alejo was now defending his turf by shooting humans no better than animals, and he wasn't going to shoot from the same place twice. Knowing that the cartels were equipped with full auto assault rifles when they started to return fire, Alejo ran to another window, took aim, fired, and then quickly moved to another window, staying out of their sight. In the initial exchange, Alejo successfully gunned down 4 of the gangsters, forcing them to retreat and regroup. When they attempted to charge again, they took cover from Alejo's deadly accurate shots. Realizing they had underestimated the 77-year-old, the cowardly gangsters knew they couldn't take him down in a shootout. Instead, they retreated to their trucks and brought out grenade launchers from a distance. The battle, which lasted a little over 5 minutes, finally came to an end when the gangsters blew everything within 50 yards into cinders. Mexican villages against La Familia. Mexico has been dealing with cartel issues for ages, and it's still a thing today. But when folks come together, they can totally turn things around. La Familia, a notorious Mexican drug cartel, began as something quite different. Back in the 1980s, they started out as a group of vigilantes, aiming to help and protect the poor, while also working to restore order in Michoacan state of Mexico. However, over time, they made a shift and transformed into a criminal gang. In the 1990s, the Gulf Cartel wanted to dominate the drug trade in Michoacan and gain an upper hand on their rivals. They saw potential in teaming up with the emerging group known as La Familia. Los Zetas, the Gulf Cartel's armed wing, took on the mission of training La Familia members to seize control of the drug operations in the region. After years of working alongside the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas, in 2006, La Familia decided to go independent and take complete control of the operations, so they splintered off. They became one of the strongest and fastest-growing Mexican cartels, linking up with the biggest cartel in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel. Driven by their quasi-religious beliefs, La Familia believed that simply selling and smuggling drugs wasn't sufficient. They felt compelled to take lives to ensure what they saw as divine justice. Accompanying their gruesome displays was a note stating that La Familia didn't kill for money, nor did they target women and innocent people. Instead, they claimed to only eliminate those they deemed deserving, as a form of divine justice. With their growing power, La Familia began to operate as a parallel state in Michoacan. They took it upon themselves to settle local disputes, fund community projects, and even control petty crimes. However, their most notorious activity was extorting money from businesses and farmers, which they justified as a tax. When the gang members stopped at the Texcaltitlan village on December 2023 to demand money from the farmers per acre, they encountered something quite unusual. Even with their fearsome reputation and a history of killing 20 townspeople in a neighboring state just a year ago, these cartel members, dressed in military-style uniforms, couldn't intimidate the villagers. The locals had had enough of the unfair extortions and stood their ground. Even though they were equipped with automatic weapons, the cartel members stood no chance against the power of the people, who were armed only with sickles and hunting rifles. Amidst bursts of automatic gunfire, they charged forward. The cartel members attempted to flee, but the villagers pursued them relentlessly, managing to capture 10 of the gang members. The angry villagers did not treat their hostages kindly, and none of them survived what followed. During this clash, 4 villagers lost their lives, and 7 were injured as well. Among the dead gangsters, one notable figure was El Payaso, or the Clown, who was leading the gang in the region. This was the day justice arrived quickly. While some might find it inhumane, given the cartel's operations, others argue that they deserved what they got. That's a wrap on the gangsters, getting more than they bargained for when they crossed paths with some formidable individuals. What do you think of these shocking events? Do you have a favorite moment? Let us know in the comments below. And before you leave, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to get more videos like this on your feed. Until then, goodbye.